Welcome. My name is Brian Heikus. I'm the Director of Product Management for Webex Connect, which is Webex's CPaaS platform. And we're going to dive in and cover this at about a 10,000-foot level today during this session. We've got lots of other sessions that if this piques your interest and you're wanting to go further, a lot of other sessions this week where we can steer you into, and I'll touch on those here at the end. Now, a couple of housekeeping things as we start. First off, if you want to continue the conversation, this is a quick session, but there's more questions that will come up. I'll save a little bit of time at the end, but if you have questions, join us on the Webex space, and myself, some of my team members will be there to moderate, to answer questions, and to guide your questions depending on where you'd like to go in the future here. Now, in terms of what we're going to talk about, we're going to be talking a lot about composable communications and engaging with your consumers. That really starts from the consumer experience. Why are we wanting to do this? How are we looking to engage those consumers? So we're going to start from that and then dive from there into enterprise CPaaS and the capabilities and the needs of businesses that are looking to engage with their consumers in this fashion. And then we'll go into the Webex Connect platform itself. So like I said, let's start from the consumers, because that's who we're really working for, right? We want our businesses to be able to connect with those consumers and for them to have a good experience. And why does this matter? We did a little research end of last year, and how important is the customer experience to the end users? And what we found is it's at least as important as price in terms of where people decide they're going to make a purchasing decision. And in terms of keeping people engaged, having return visitors. Customers say brand loyalty is great, but if somebody can give me a better experience, something that's smoother, more seamless, I'm going to switch over to them. And the other thing that was really interesting that came out of this is that consumers really are saying businesses need to meet them on the channels that the consumer is already on. They don't want to have to hunt down. What's that phone number? What's the web page that I can go to? If a consumer is already on Facebook or on WhatsApp or on SMS, they expect the business to be there and meet them there and have a good experience for them to the limit of that channel. And while this is driven a bit by millennials, they show this more than anyone else. Excuse me. It is very interesting. You see this across all age ranges and demographics. The number of people who would like to be able to order room service via SMS, or I need an extra towel, from a hotel, really doesn't segregate by demographic. But despite, and this is really, the customer experiences here really have changed. People expect a seamless, frictionless experience that's really integrated across all of the different channels. They want to self-serve, right up into the point where the self-service tool gets in their way. How many of us have had that experience, right? I've called up the helpline, I started going through the IVR, okay, if this is sales, press 1. If it's service, press 2. Okay, if it's internet, press 1. If it's TV, press 2. If it's cellular, press 3. Not a great experience. And then you go through, give them your phone number, give them your account number, your last four, your social to prove who you are, and then, you sort of dead end. And you come to that point where, now I need to talk to somebody. Okay, press 0 to get the operator. And what's the first thing they ask? What's your account number? What's the last four of your social, right? We need to have this seamless customer experience that goes from these digital channels all the way up through to people, and then back down, right? It's not just a one-way street, it's bi-directional. And brands really think they do a good job at this. Bain & Company did a survey on this, and 80% of brands said, we deliver a superior experience for our customers. Consumers said, no, you don't. That disconnect right there is what we're trying to solve. It's why businesses are really accelerating the investment into platforms like CPaaS or into composable spaces where they can build an interactive experience that meets those customers' needs, meets those seamless expectations that consumers are bringing in. Let's be honest, COVID accelerated this. Everybody thinks of how COVID shut everything down. All the brick and mortar stores, how are we going to do this? And then you saw the rise of a lot of use cases, right? Buy online, pick up in store. Text when you get into the parking lot and your groceries will come out to you. pharmacy prescription notifications really went off through the roof. These are some of the cases that we've powered. And there was a supposition there for a while that, okay, once COVID eases off, this transformation is going to stop, or it's going to slow back down, right? This was a temporary acceleration. And what we've really seen, those expectations that customers had of, this is what I want, it's going broader. And it's really driving the usage across all of the industry. The people who got it are seeing the lift from it. Everybody else is saying, I got to catch up. I got to fill this gap that we see here from the Bain study. Now, if you think of these interactions, historically, businesses really drove these interactions over channels that they owned, right? It was more of a reactive, manual process, and it was either customer service, I'll call you or find me online, or when they were using push notifications, outbound messaging, a lot of that really was around customer acquisition. And with this shift where customers are saying, I want you to serve me on my terms, meet me where I am, we really see a difference here. Service on the channels that consumers prefer, regardless of which of the 20 or 30 that those are, or it's the new one that just came out last week, right? Consumers want to have natural language conversations. They want to interact with these bots or with these services in the same way as if they'd walked up to the customer service desk. It's not hunt through that menu that I was talking about a minute ago. It was, tell me what your problem is. Well, my TV's out and my phone died too. Okay, let me help you with that, right? That's the expectation. And well, I mentioned here on the slide, people are looking for automated. They're looking for that ability to self-serve and take care of it without having to interact with a person. They also don't want to be pigeonholed to where it dead ends. We've all been stuck in that loop of, what do you want to do today? I want to refill my prescription. Okay, what would you like to do today? I want to refill my prescription. What would you like to do today? Refill? How do I find the magic word? Nobody wants to be stuck in that. It's a horrible experience, and it drives people away. The other part that we really see is that there's really a virtuous cycle. Previously you had marketing, and you had customer service, and then you had business operations. And all of them operated more in silos. They operated sort of independent of each other. What we really see is that can either be a very great virtuous cycle, driving for customers from one point to the next, or it can be a vicious cycle that really tears the business apart. From a virtuous cycle, right? A sales, opportunity. You've closed on the deal. Now I've got to do the delivery, buy online, pick up at the curb, as an example. And how do I tie that sale into the operational aspect? How do I then tie that operational? You just picked up your TV. Let me reach out and ask, how is it working for you? Is there any help that I can provide you if we haven't seen it come online for connected TVs in the first week, right? There's the proactive communication that comes through all of that. And I'll highlight a couple of examples of that here in a minute. It seems so easy, right? How do we tie all that together? But the challenge that businesses face typically is that they've got a lot of investment already there in, I'll call it the legacy IT estate. They spend a lot of money on systems that, let's be honest, weren't necessarily designed to work together. And they need some way to bring those various pieces together in order to deliver the experience that customers are looking for. They need some middle point that ties the conversations to the various back-end systems for personalization or order fulfillment or current status, right? And that need to have that single point of orchestration across helps drive the ability to engage with that consumer. By having that, right now everybody's building point solutions. I've got my billing application, or I've got my billing number, I've got my queue for order fulfillment, I've got my customer service for service outage, etc. These are all fragmented journeys, and they don't necessarily play off each other. Additionally, when you solve these individually, you end up having to secure and scale each of those independently. So, hey, I've got GDPR compliance for my billing and my notifications, but I don't necessarily have that tied in to my refill reminders on prescriptions or into my marketing, where I might actually have to if there's customer preferences involved in phone numbers, right? It's PII, and we have to bridge those gaps. All of these come together to provide a poor consumer experience when it's end-to-end. And that's where Webex and Cisco at large really help create connected customer experiences, addressing those problems. And it starts, we have customer experience applications. For those of you who are here for the last session or who are going to stay for the next, focusing really heavily on contact center and bringing the CPaaS capabilities that we have to enable digital channels into the contact center. I'm not going to go really deep in this session, but I am going to focus sort of on the next layer, which is Webex Connect, right? A composable a composable messaging system so that you can build the experiences that you want and tie it to the different parts of your business and really connect those business systems with the myriad of channels that are out there so you can meet those customers where they're looking to be. Beyond that, Webex also has some lower level services, things like the Journey Data Service, to be able to track all of those interactions and make them available to the other parts of your business and these interactions to be able to drive the communications, personalize it, and act on the prior interactions that you've had. And then, of course, on all of this on top of the underlying Webex platform for calling, messaging, meetings, and others, right? We've got the whole suite here. Now, when we look at there we go. When we look at thinking of these journeys across the life cycle and how you can build these customer experiences, it really starts everything from the start of that interaction, from consideration and purchase, all the way through service delivery into retention and service of the user. And I've mentioned a couple of the cases, right? Buy online, pick up in store, prescription notifications and readiness for refills, appointment scheduling and reminders, fraud alerts, moving over into the banking industry, package delivery and rerouting. There's a whole range of interactions where brands are looking to have a connection with their customer. I'll use an example that happened to me live sort of on the way out here. I was coming out of Fort Lauderdale. I live down in South Florida, and we had an equipment problem on the plane. And it went from being a 1-hour delay to a 2-hour delay to a 4-hour delay. And just as I'm starting to get worried about, okay, how am I going to make it out here in time, I start getting text messages from my airline. Hey, we note that your plane's delayed and your initial flight's delayed. Looks like you're going to miss your connection. Click here and we'll reschedule you and reroute the second leg of your flight so that you don't have to worry about getting to Vegas. Consider that proactive reach out. I'm one click, I see a list of the flights that I could do, and I change my flight. And I'm a satisfied customer. I'm not one of those 50 people standing in line trying to get rebooked by the gate agent or calling and flooding the numbers, because I was just one of 30 or 40 flights. We had thunderstorms that day too. It was a mess there. But I'm a satisfied customer sitting back and enjoying my dinner instead of rushing around. That's a great example of a proactive communication. Now, I would have loved it if instead of saying click here and go to the web to our scheduling application, instead in the text message it just said, here's 3 options for your second leg. Please pick the one that you would like to have, right? It's a deeper integration. They'd have to build the chatbot into being able to actually access the scheduling system and then trust it and communicate back. Perfectly capable of doing so, but they took a first step, right? Proactive notification leading into the customer experience instead of trying to wait till they solved everything. Just one example of many that I can point out, but one that was just real timely, and since most of us are traveling here, something that I think all of you can relate to. Now, if you imagine a truly connected world, right? Think of one of the most complicated systems we probably all come across, healthcare, right? I don't know about you guys. I hit my GP after COVID, and he said, well, you need to go to a specialist for something. I'd torn up my ankle a little bit, and he said, you got to go to a specialist. And so I started that whole interaction of let me call, let me get on the calendar, and back and forth, and all the forms. But how would, if we envisioned that as a truly connected experience in a journey on messaging, across any of the channels? It starts while that referral goes in. Well, maybe if I could text in and get access to appointment schedules and be able to choose right there. Then instead of getting the phone call the day before saying, well, please go to our website and fill out the COVID 3 questions, right? No 104-degree temperature, no close contact, no cough, etc. Well, here, go do that. And by the way, while you're there, get your insurance information filled out as well, right? And then, I had a last-minute problem. I had to reschedule. So that reminder that comes in to make sure I show up and not get the $50 missed appointment fee. And for them, the office sitting empty and not making money for an hour. Those reminders and rescheduling and being able to drive all of that. Couple that with a bot. So instead of me walking in the door and going, okay, where do I go? What do I do? Having an FAQ bot that then drives that interaction. Check-in, so you can sit in your car until you can go in the waiting room, because many are still keeping lightweight waiting rooms. And then wouldn't even be better. Don't have to show up at all. So many doctor's appointments could be video consultations. They don't actually need to, well, for mine, okay, they still had to twist my ankle around and feel if it was messed up. But so many other ones, right, can be done online and deliver that way. And then test results delivered securely to the user. Right, just so many different touch points here that are communications and could be built into a connected flow and a connected journey that really drive that customer experience. Now, it's an opportunity. But if you think of that experience that I just walked through, all those different touch points, all of those different back office systems at a doctor's office, even if they've standardized on somebody like Epic, right, they've got a number of different modules, a number of different interactions that all have to be orchestrated one after the other. And you've got to find, for the channel that you're on, what is the right medium, right? Is it text messages where it's 160 characters in text? Is it MMS where you get to add images and video? Is it something like Apple Business Chat where you've got the ability to have rich cards, carousels, buttons, and an app-like experience, or Google Business Messages, or WhatsApp, or Facebook Messenger, or Line, or WeChat, or Telegram, or, right? There's just a huge number of these out there across the spectrum, and each business needs to integrate with a different set of them. And so it's a challenge, because not only is the back office systems changing over time, but so are the channels and where the customers are. And so in that challenge, there's really the opportunity, and this is the opportunity that Webex Connect is set up to help address. And that is being able to connect and integrate to all of the different back office systems and all of the different platforms that you've already got deployed, and then deliver it across all those channels, but making those integrations reusable, making them so that when you make a change, it cascades through all of them, and also applying some of those tricky business logic rules that you need to put in for messaging. Don't send to people who've said stop on text. You don't want that $1,500 fine. Don't send after 8 p.m. in Brazil. Don't send on Friday in Egypt, right? And there's hundreds of these, right? It's all over the place. How do you build these? How do you enforce them? And how do you protect the business and keep the business running as you go through here? Now, did I skip one? No, I didn't. Okay. Now, I do want to spend a minute and talk about some of these journeys that really cut across, and this is a real example, that cut across some of the functional boundaries that we have in enterprises. And this is a case of fraud alerts. If you think of fraud alerts, this is something that everybody runs across, especially if you're traveling. Come to Vegas, my credit card company, when I stopped to get lunch the other day, actually texted me and said, we saw somebody used your credit card in Las Vegas. Are you really there? Because I didn't buy my airline ticket on the same card. This is a case we actually do with a bank in the UK. But first off is the integration to the back-end fraud alert system. They've spent a lot of money building out robust logic of trying to identify when something might be fraud. And so we don't want to replicate that because that's a core system and a competency that they have. But what they needed was a way of connecting that system with customers across digital channels. And it started with the integration to the fraud alert flow, pulling that in. But because we're dealing with payment data and personal information, maybe where they're spending money, combination of a phone number plus where you may have spent money, definitely protected information. And so we have to protect that data and encrypt it inside our system. At that point, then sending messaging off to the customer to say, okay, did you actually do this? And then acting on what does the user do there? First case, did the user actually respond? If not, does this need to be escalated? If you think about it, text, it's a fairly non-interruptive use case, right? If you think about it, when we get text messages, most of us don't grab our phone and look at them right away. We do get a 97% read rate on text, but that's over the first half hour. But for a fraud alert for, say, $5,000, I want to be interrupted. If my bank is protecting me, I want to know. So do we escalate that to a phone call? Do we escalate that to a different channel that is more interruptive? And do we also then need to send things in other channels as backup, email or others, to document this to protect the business as well that we tried to reach you? Then when, assume the consumer responds on SMS. How do they respond? Hey, are you trying to spend $12 at Wingstop? Yep. Yes. I. Why? All sorts of different answers that people come back with. Some of them are a little more predictable than others. Some, you sort of scratch your head and say, well, what were they trying to say? And so you need to put a loop in there. Natural language processing and understanding is great, but it doesn't always get it. And so you may have to ask the consumer for clarification over and over. And at that point, if you're not getting what you need from the customer, you need to give them an out. How do you escalate this to an agent, whether it's to the call center or to someone else in the loop, for a specialist handling of the system? And so, you have that looping and that logic built in, and at the end, when you have the answer, you got to drive it back into the core systems. This is a great example of a single point use case. But if you think of a bank, right? A bank has how many different customer touch points and different interactions they have with their customer. This is one on fraud alerts. And people always say, well, it's not that hard to build this as an application and build it once. You're right. It's very easy to build one of these and maintain one of these. But when you think about all those different systems and all those different interactions, okay, it's sort of like the app problem. Does somebody remember when the App Store came out? There's an app for that. You can get your app up in 2 weeks with 2 people, was the sort of the mantra. Well, it was true. You could get that first app up in 2 weeks. And then you need another 2 people because iOS was going to upgrade. And then you need another 2 people because instead of doing billing, you now need customer care and customer support. Or, well, now there's Android. And the next thing you know, you've got a team of 30 treading water and maintaining all of these applications that you've got to get on the roadmap a year in advance to get something implemented on. And that's that same challenge that you see with customer experience applications, and where we say that's where the value of Webex Connect, of bringing it into a central platform and making it so you can reuse elements of this over and over. Now, real quickly, I'll use one more example here, which is a promise to pay. And if you go to the DevNet session, I think that starts right after this, they're actually going to go through this in more detail, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But if you think of a customer interaction that is common, hey, your bill's overdue. And the amount of time and energy companies put into running this down, especially on service providers, we're going to have to turn you off if you don't pay. Well, one of the very effective cases that we found is a simple text reminder and asking consumers, by the way, did you forget? I know I often do. But did you forget? Would you like to pay right now? Or would you like to promise to pay by your next bill due date? Or would you like to talk to somebody? Because there are those cases where you need to. And so this is one that actually has significant return for the enterprises that we've talked about, and has really led to them, the denial of service, or when they have to cut somebody off and then reinstate, has proved very effective for them. And so when I look at Webex Connect, looking across the sort of entire range of capabilities that the platform has, and I've touched on them as we go through, but to sort of summarize them here, the ability to integrate with the various back-end systems that you've got, bridging all of those interactions, the ability to rapidly not only launch, but to change and iterate as customers give you feedback in real time is a key component here. And then the ability to scale. If you think of your marketing campaigns, think of Black Friday. I'm going to run normal campaigns the whole year, and Black Friday comes along, and I need to send more messages to more people and handle the responses. Or let's go with the week after Christmas, when everybody's returning all the gifts they got, and you need to be able to staff up and handle that, right? All of those. How do you scale that out where you don't have to rely on your teams to do it, and do it repeatedly for each individual point application? At the same time, how do you deal with the complexity of all the new channels that come up? Instagram released a new API. WhatsApp changed their messaging rules. SMS is changing how you can get numbers. You need a system that's going to manage all of that for you. And then how, as you build these orchestrations, can you integrate whatever NLP and AI systems that you've got, whether it's an expert system you've built for recommendations, or one to interpret what consumers are sending back to you to be able to trigger interactions. Webex Connect brings the capabilities for all of those. Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.